Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order at time 10:05. Before we get into the full meeting agenda for the September 19th, 2024 Chicago Plan Commission meeting, I want to quickly provide guidance to those who want to provide testimony on cases presented for public hearing today. A few of you may have already submitted forms electronically, but for anyone else who may wish to testify before the Plan Commission, please fill out the sheets located on the table where you entered the room. Please include your full name, address, and if you are for or against the proposal, and if you are here representing yourself as an organization. Please raise your hand, please hand your sheets to one of the staff members. People who have completed forms will be called on after each item is presented. Out of respect for other speakers, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please line up at the microphone behind me and to the left in the order I call your name, and please do not repeat comments that have been made by previous speakers. The public comment portion of the meeting is not a question and answer session of staff or the applicant, but an opportunity for attendees to voice their opinions on a particular proposal. Out of respect for others, please do not interrupt or disrupt the speakers. Any individual who disrupts the presentation or any subsequent comment session may be asked to leave the council chambers, or if necessary, may be escorted out by security. With that, I'd like to do a roll call. Commissioner Boatwright. Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Brumfield is present. Commissioner Carney. Commissioner Dowell. Commissioner Escarino. Commissioner Murphy. Commissioner Piñero.
Here.
Commissioner Reyes.
Here.
Commissioner Chicho Lopez. Commissioner Sposata. Commissioner Villegas. With that, we will now approve the meeting minutes from August 15th, 2024, regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting. The minutes were distributed prior to the hearing today. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission held on August 15th, 2024? So moved by Commissioner Boatwright, seconded by Escarino. With that, roll call vote. Commissioner Boatwright. Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Brumfield is a yes. Commissioner Carney. Commissioner Dahl. Commissioner Escarino. Commissioner Murphy. Commissioner Piñero.
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes.
Yes.
Commissioner Chicho Lopez. Commissioner Sposata. Commissioner Villegas. Motion passes. Just a reminder, as we have returned to in-person hearings, we will take public comments for the items on the agenda after each item has been presented. If you have not already done so and you wish to speak on an item, please complete a testimony slip available at the back of the chamber. Staff members are available to assist if needed and will collect the forms from you. Next on the agenda are matters submitted in accordance with the Interagency Plan Referral Act. Do I have a motion to approve items C1 and C2 listed under the ANLAP heading, item C3 listed under the TIP plan heading, item C4 listed under the acquisition heading, and item C5 through C11 listed under the disposition heading?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Piñero, second by Commissioner Boatwright. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatwright. Commissioner Brooks. Here. Commissioner Brumfield is yes. Commissioner Carney. Commissioner Dowell. Commissioner Escarino. Commissioner Murphy. Commissioner Piñero.
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes. Commissioner Villegas. Actually, I skipped over Commissioner Chicho Lopez. I'm not sure if he's here yet. Okay. Motion passes. Now we move on to the public hearing presentation portion for matters submitted in accordance with the Lake Michigan and Chicago Lakefront Protection Ordinance and the Chicago zoning ordinance. The first item today is listed as D1, a proposed amendment to business plan development number 665, submitted by LDI Partners LLC for the properties generally located at 3926, 3948 North Damon Avenue, and 3959 North Lincoln Avenue. The applicant proposes to repurpose and expand the existing building in Sub-Area A to accommodate a 5-story, approximately 75-foot tall mixed-use building with 64 units, 18 parking spaces, and approximately 3,500 square feet of ground floor commercial space. To construct a new 7-story building at the height not to exceed 85 feet that includes 130 units, 54 parking spaces, and approximately 5,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space in Sub-Area B, and to repurpose and continue the use of a single-story bank building that will not exceed 50 feet in height and will include 7 parking spaces, 5 drive-through lanes for existing ATMs, a remote teller, and a night deposit safe. The overall FAR of the planned development will not exceed 3.44. This is item number 22376, located in the 47th Ward. Danielle Kreider will provide the context overview and present the proposed plan. Danielle.
This proposed development is generally located at 3959 North Lincoln and 3940 North Damon. It is in the North Center community area in the 47th Ward. The applicant, LDI Partners LLC, and their development team are here to propose an amendment to Plan Development Number 665, which currently includes the subject sites. North Center's median household income is $148,000, more than twice the citywide average. North Center's population is 73% white. It's a highly sought-after neighborhood and has one of the lowest rates of naturally occurring affordable housing in the city. I'm going to hand the presentation over to Rich Kleider with DLA Piper to introduce the rest of the project team.
Thank you, Danielle. Good morning, everybody. For the record, Rich Clowder, DLA Piper. I'm pleased to represent the applicant today in this matter. Before we continue with the presentation, I just wanted to briefly introduce our team. This is really 2 residential projects that are part of the same plan development. One is a market rate project being undertaken by a partnership among Jay Case, Greg Moyer, and Alex Milanowski. Greg and Alex are present today. The other is an affordable housing project being undertaken by Brinshore Development, represented here today by Mike Roan, to my right. The design team includes Johnny Noble from Lamar Johnson Collaborative and Tyler Brown from LBBA. Just a quick introduction. This is a unique partnership between a market rate developer and an affordable housing developer, and together they are planning a transformative project for the North Center neighborhood. Alderman Martin and his staff were instrumental in developing the vision for a project that leverages private investment in a market rate project for the benefit of a 100% affordable project at this prominent location, which is shown here and located on either side of Damon Avenue at a 6 corners location intersecting with Lincoln Avenue and Irving Park Road. You'll note on this slide that there is a range of land uses in this immediate area, including commercial, residential, and mixed uses, which are indicated on the slide. In just a minute, we'll get into the details of the plan itself, but this slide shows the 3 sub-areas. The market rate project is in sub-area B and is located on the west side of Damon Avenue. The affordable project is in sub-area A and is located at the southeast intersection of Lincoln and Irving. Sub-area C will remain a drive-through bank operated by Fifth Third Bank, which is the current owner of the properties consisting of sub-areas A, B, and C. What makes this project particularly unique and compelling is the partnership between the market rate housing developer and the affordable housing developer. Sub-area A will be conveyed to a Brinshore-controlled entity and developed as 64 units of permanent supportive housing for survivors of gender-based violence. Every unit will be affordable along a continuum of affordable rents and unit types. Many of the occupants will be immigrants and refugees and will receive assistance from CHA and other sources of subsidy. The affordable project has received an allocation of low-income housing tax credits and other tax credit sources, as well as conventional sources of financing. Through the Alderman's leadership in the community process, Brinshore was chosen as the affordable housing developer and Apnagar as the service provider. Together, they will rehabilitate and adaptively reuse the existing bank building and the larger bank building, what we refer to as the white building on the corner, and fulfill a critical need for the affordable housing and supportive services that are required for the benefit of this vulnerable and underserved population. It's also located at a transit-rich location served by train and bus modes of transportation in an area of the city, as Daniel noted, at which there would otherwise be very few housing options available for this community of residents. It's been my personal pleasure to work with the development team, aldermen, city departments, and neighborhood to deliver a project that is both pioneering and worthy of this commission's support. I would like to now turn the presentation over to Johnny Noble from the Lamar Johnson Collaborative Architects, who will walk you through the project in a bit more detail.
Great, yeah, and I'm Johnny Noble, design architect with LJC. I'll go kind of quick, so if you have questions at the end, we can go back to anything. So what's on the screen is sub-area A, the existing building on the left, the new addition on the right, sympathetic in materials and scale. This view is on Irving and Damon looking west. And again, the existing building to the right, the new addition wrapping around to the left, darker windows to match the existing, and a light color brick to match the existing tone. At sub-area B, this is the now vacant site. And so this is a view right at the corner of Irving and Damon, looking at the prominent Six Corners intersection. And you see the rounded corner as a prominent architectural feature to express that. As we come down Damon, now looking north, this is the new entry plaza that has ample space for some future public art, as well as adds quite a bit of relief for what could be a large building as you move south along Damon. This is a view on Irving looking east, and here we see again the lighter colored brick that should match the sub-area A tone of the existing and new buildings. Sub-area C is unchanged, again, as Rich mentioned, and is capped in the PD at 50 feet. The ground floor, both projects have a combination of parking, retail, and amenity. Sub-area A has 18 cars, very generous amenities for the residents, and then some retail at the corner. Sub-area B has retail at the corner, as well as some amenity in lobby as we move down Damon, and then 54 parking spaces. The sub-area A has 64 units as mentioned, mostly 2s and 3s. Sub-area B has a total of 130, largely 1s and 2s. The project will have 50% green roof as part of the sustainability policy as well. The market rate project will have an amenity deck on the 6th level. A few elevations. These two elevations, the west and the north, are the more prominent public streets. In the existing building, you can see how it's separated from the addition with a nice dark reveal as it transitions to a more modern aesthetic that is still sympathetic with what's existing. The east and south elevations of the same project are secondary elevations on the alley and within the courtyard created, and are comprised of, as you see here, the fiber cement panel. So the primary elevations, again, along the public streets are brick, metal panel, and then the secondary elevations are fiber cement, still with an accent of metal panel. The entry of sub-area A, you can see how they're using some nice green perforated metal to accent the entry, and then the remaining facade is a blend of light colored brick and metal panel. So sub-area B is also comprised mostly of brick, and you can see how as we move left across the page, down Damon on the east elevation, changing from the lighter brick to a darker, to a red brick, giving an appearance of multiple massings coming together. The west and north elevations also comprised mostly of brick with accent of metal panel, and the balconies highlighted as vertical reveals. The aerial here shows, again, the brick, how it changes per massing to break the scale as we go down Damon, with a light color brick at the corner, and then the red and gray accent panels throughout. Sections just simply show this is residential over public amenity and retail. This is sub-area A capped at 65 feet. Sub-area B with a height, maximum height of 85 feet, 5 levels stepping up to, or 6 levels stepping up to 7, with retail over amenity and parking. A little more detail in the axon. You can see the on the right image, you can see that high identity corner as rounded brick. And then on the left image, you see the recessed balconies to create more relief along the facade. The bulk table for your reference, a lot of it's been mentioned already, capped at 3.44 FAR for the combined site, and then height of 85 feet for sub-area B and 65 for sub-area A and 50 for sub-area C. So we're still, until the end of the year, still in the 2017 Sustainability Development Policy. So that's what we're going with. For sub-area A, a large portion of the points will be from Green Communities certificate for sub-area A. And then for B, there will be a collection of points through energy, water, transportation, and others to get to the 100 points required. In terms of open space and landscaping, I've already mentioned on sub-area B, the 2,800 square foot entry plaza. That would be a great spot for some public art, as well as give some relief to the bus stop that is along Damon. Again, in terms of circulation, sub-area A is accessed, its parking off of the alley, and then entries both on Irving and Lincoln. Sub-area B accesses its parking through on Damon. There's currently 3 curb cuts on the site. We're coming down to just 1 for sub-area B, and then loading is serviced off the alley. Stormwater, again, I mentioned the 50% green roof combined with underground detention will take care of the stormwater management ordinance. Okay, back to Rich.
This is a slide showing the genesis of the project, which dates back many years. Josh from the Alderman's office reminded me that it's been fully 4 years since he and I first exchanged initial emails on this project. So it's been a long time coming, and we're really pleased to be here in front of you today. The one constant, as I mentioned, has been Alderman Martin's commitment to soliciting community feedback and to ensuring that the design and scale are contextual and that the affordability and supportive services for the residents of this population are significant and comprehensive. The first public meeting, as noted on the slide, occurred in 2023. Actually, that's not right. 2020, excuse me. Since and throughout that time, there's been extensive community feedback and engagement with North Center neighbors and other stakeholders. In 2023, the Brinshaw-Apnagar Group was onboarded, and since that time, changes in design responsive to the concerns of the community have been incorporated into the project. The new construction building in sub-area A has been scaled back and made less dense so that what were originally 170 units are now 130 units, with a larger number of 2-bedroom units. It was also important to the bank that they retain their use of sub-area C, and since they are the landowner, that was always an inflection point for us and a cornerstone of the development that we had to respect and navigate around. I should also lastly mention that one of the benefits of the reduction in the massing was to allow for the incorporation of the public plaza and greater setbacks along Damon and Irving Park, as well as other enhancements to promote pedestrian safety and a superior aesthetic, as Johnny mentioned a moment ago. This series of images, although a bit difficult to see, evidence the evolution of the design to respond to community feedback that resulted in the changes that I mentioned, to everything from the scale and density to the quality of the street facing facade treatments. This is a unique application of the Affordable Requirements Ordinance. We owe a great debt to Alderman Martin and DOH for helping us land on this approach. From the standpoint of the ARO, this project has 64 affordable units among a total of 194 units, meaning that on an overall basis, about a third of the overall unit count is affordable. Income levels for the affordable units are also well below the minimum average weighted AMI of 60%. This is due in part to the permanent supportive housing units and the nature of those units for which that project receives project-based rental assistance through the Chicago Housing Authority. This was also accomplished in part by the willingness on the part of the market rate developer to facilitate the sale of the sub-area A property, which is the affordable project, to the Brinshaw-Apnagar Partnership at well below fair market value, and well in excess of what the fee in lieu requirement would have been. A quick word about the economic benefits before I pass it back to Danielle to close. There are other substantial public benefits associated with this project. In addition to the creative approach to providing affordable housing at this north side location to a vulnerable group of residents whose access to housing would otherwise be severely challenged in this neighborhood, we anticipate upwards of 230 construction jobs, several permanent jobs, neighborhood retail opportunities, open space enhancements, improved streetscaping, and of course, robust M and WBE participation pursuant to the terms of the city's executive order. I will now pass it back to Danielle to conclude. I want to express my thanks to DPD, DOH, CDOT, and other city agencies for their thoughtful review and patience, and to Alderman Martin and his staff for their vision, stick-to-itiveness, and advocacy. Thank you for being this project's biggest champions. Over to you.
In closing, the Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the project and concluded that it meets the criteria specified in Chapter 1713-0609 of the Municipal Code. The Subarea A project has been thoughtfully designed to preserve a high-quality, prominent building at the intersection while serving a population requiring specialized services and housing options. The Subarea B development will replace a surface-level parking lot at a major intersection and has been designed to make Damon Avenue more appealing to pedestrian activity and to present a building mass that is compatible with the existing neighborhood. You can find more detail in my staff report. It is the recommendation of the zoning administrator of the Department of Planning and Development that this application to amend Plan Development Number 665 be forwarded to the City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards with a recommendation to approve. Thank you. We're here for any questions you have.
Thank you. We do have one person signed to speak on this particular item, Mr. Butler Adams.
For the record, my name is Butler Adams. I just want to stay consistent. I am in favor of this project. I got a chance to go to the community meeting at O'Donovan's back in January of, I think it was 2023, so last year. And I like the project then, I like the project now. I like the brick articulation of the building. Not necessarily a fan of the metal panels, but I think it's a good addition to the neighborhood. I know that the height has been reduced and the unit count has been reduced. I do wish that the unit count could have remained the same, even just by bumping up the height of the building a little bit. I know there was some concern about regarding some of the neighbors regarding the height of the building, but I don't think the taller buildings inside of neighborhoods on commercial corridors are that bad of a thing. You look at Northwest Tower or the Coyote on, what is that, Damon, Milwaukee, and I can't think of the other cross street right now. But it's a 12-story tall building. It's been around nearly 100 years, and it doesn't impact the neighborhood in a bad way at all. But I do think this is a good addition, and I do hope that once maybe you all decide to go with that final phase, what the bank is right now, because you reduced the size, you can restore the 40 units that got cut from this project. And I also hope that you could possibly maybe enhance that rounded base slightly more to make it a bit more prominent. And I do want to thank the alderman for being a little bit more creative and futuristic and thinking of how we need to add more density to the area, because he along with was the Alderman Vasquez, were very instrumental in upzoning 5 miles of Western very recently. And I do think that because this project is very close to the Brown line along Irving Park, that he should look at other corridors in this general area to also upzone either empty parcels or the corridor itself. But for this project, again, I am in favor and look forward to being built. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. The commissioners have any questions of staff or the applicant? Commissioner Reyes.
Yes, I am in total favor of affordable housing and eager to learn more about this partnership between a market rate developer and an affordable housing developer. So could you tell me more a little bit about what would have been the in lieu fee and versus the acquisition of the land? Because I want to make sure that there is an advantage here in terms of the affordability. I know that if only the market rate unit would have been building, 20% probably will not sum up to 130 units. So I truly value that. But I want to understand more, how that happened and how clear the savings are for the affordable housing component.
That's a great question. Thank you for it. So there are really two components that I think are responsive to your question. The first is, and I mentioned this in passing, the market rate developer is has been the contract purchaser of the entire site. So they will facilitate the conveyance of sub-area A to the affordable housing developer. And so they will be separate projects, separately financed, et cetera. In order to facilitate that, they discounted significantly the sale price to the Brinshaw-Apnagar partnership. I believe that the appraised value is somewhere in the range of $7 million, $11,125,000, and the sale price is $7 million. So that's an over $4 million subsidy, if you will, from the private developer for the benefit of the affordable.
You're making, so there are, I'm assuming there are different appraisals, right? There's one appraisal for sub-area A and 1B, or there's just one appraisal for all the area?
Separate appraisals. We had
Okay.
one appraisal because they required it
Yes.
for their IDA application.
Yes, okay.
And the appraisal for just their sub-area came in at $7 million, at $11,125,000. The sale price agreed upon between the two parties is $7 million.
Okay.
In terms of the fee in lieu, if the market rate project were proceeding alone in isolation from the affordable project, they would have a 26-unit requirement. The fee in lieu is well less than that $4 million that I mentioned. I don't know what the current fee in lieu is that would be applicable to this neighborhood, but if you want to round it up to $200,000, you know, it's well within the $4.1 million subsidy that is being provided. The other thing that I should say, in case the question is on someone's mind, is there are unique aspects of the permanent supportive housing aspect of the affordable housing project that require that project to be isolated, not isolated, but in its own building. This is a very vulnerable, needy population. Very few units of housing are available to them. And because of the intensity of the support services that are offered this population, they need to be in their own building. And
Yeah,
so
no, I'm familiar with that.
Okay, and the other thing that I should mention is this was a critical aspect to the alderman from day one, that there be robust affordability here, that it was the alderman himself and his staff that identified the potential partners, which wound up being Brinshaw and Apnagar. So again, it's a very out-of-the-box kind of approach to the
Yeah.
ARO, but I think we more than measure up to the spirit and the letter of the law.
Yeah, I'm looking at Noah,
Yep.
if you know the in lieu
For the
fee.
record, Noah Safranek. So the in lieu of fee would be, it's between $155,000 and $156,000 per unit, roughly $4.1 million. And then the sale reduction is about $4.1 million. It's
Also-
it's more than the allowance. We just have to give you the exact number. It's either 4.03 million or 4.09 million, depending on the exact number.
Okay, you can follow up later. I appreciate it. Now, I completely understand permanent supportive housing, so this is what my first reaction would have been, you know, why we have one building here, one, you know, market affordable. I completely understand that logic. I would have not if it would have been just a family rental housing project, right? Because why we are separating families. My question also is, are there any amenities or opportunities where these two different type of populations are going to have the opportunity to engage?
Mike, do you mind answering that question to the extent that you can? Is it no, or is there some overlap in services? Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Mike Rohn. I work with Brinshaw Development. And specific to your question, Wakolda, no, the population, I mean, they, in general, as residents of the neighborhood, yes, but not necessarily back and forth from building to building.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments by the commissioners? I do have a question. If you wouldn't mind going back to slide 14. And this is more for the architect, looking at sub-area A. The green roof that is accessible to the residents? If you wouldn't mind taking a,
On the roof of the building.
someone should take the mic, please. If you can introduce yourself and take the mic.
Tyler Brown with LBBA. The green roof on the roof of the building is accessible to residents, yes.
Okay. And speaking on actually sub-area, the lot on sub-area A also, I noticed, kind of a unique way of kind of laying, the units out, almost kind of a shotgun, if you will. I do actually kind of appreciate the creativity. I would love to see how these actually rent, because I do understand you guys, this site is very constrained and you're literally, in a good way, I think, squeezing into units. So, down the line, once this gets constructed, I would love to see how these rent, because I could think this is a nice creative way to actually, solve some other unit layouts. Just slide 14, yes. It was just more of a comment, maybe, and I'm not sure if you can zoom in on this, but, the units in particular, Commissioner Dow, that I'm speaking to are these kind of longer units. Typically, those units on a double-loaded corridor building tend to be 27 and a half plus or minus feet. These are pretty narrow units and long units. And how wide are those units roughly?
They're much less than 27 feet. Yeah, it's that existing floor plate of the bank is pretty shallow. So yeah, getting the double-loaded corridor made for wide but shallow units. I think they're something like 18 feet deep.
18 feet in depth.
But we think it's going to actually make pretty nice units because they're going to have a lot more windows than they normally would on a narrower, deeper floor plate.
No, we'd love to see how these rent down the line. It could be an interesting prototype that does get introduced on other buildings.
And to clarify, that's part of the affordable building. So it'll be part of the services they provide.
Understood. I do understand that Josh Mark is here on behalf of Alderman Martin to make a statement on, or his position, letter on file.
So, thank you to members of the commission. Alderman Martin could not make it today, so I'm Joshua Mark, his chief of staff. With me is Lucy Nye, our director of development, and I'm here to relay the alderman's proud support of this quite groundbreaking, certainly equitable transit-oriented development. As we understand it, this is the first instance of a development containing permanent supportive housing that is dedicated solely to survivors of gender-based violence in the city of Chicago. What the alderman wanted me to highlight as well is the extent of the community engagement and conversations that have taken place, as was highlighted earlier by Rich. Since we started talking to the development team back in 2020, we have hosted no fewer than 4 public community meetings and no fewer than 8 smaller meetings with members both of the North Center Neighbors Association and of the North Center Chamber of Commerce. In total, as best we could tell, we received a minimum of 1,000 comments from the community on matters ranging from affordability to aesthetics, height and bulk, but also pedestrian safety and cyclist safety. We were in fact able to engage the Department of Transportation in designing and implementing later this month pedestrian and cyclist safety improvements at this intersection as part of this same conversation. We're very proud of the conversations we've had with our community, of the openness of our community as well, their understanding that at such a critical intersection in North Center, so close to transit and 2 high-frequency bus lines, we needed to do better, go bigger, and have more density. And as has been discussed, 1/3 fully of that density is affordable. So the alderman is in strong support of this proposal.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any additional questions for staff, the applicant, or the alderman? If not, I would also like to recognize that Commissioner Brooks. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Dow.
This is a minor question. Just, someone tell me the amenities that are in each of the buildings?
Sure, this is Johnny Noble again. Sub area B has 130 bikes, so a really large, nice bike room right at ground level. It'll have a party room and fitness center and kind of a co-working space as well.
It also has a bike room, one space for each unit, on-site management office, community rooms for the residents, with a fitness center, common laundry, and I think that covers it, yeah.
Do you have space for, computers or where people can go and get on the internet and,
That is part of the plan, yes.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Boatright.
These projects are really exciting and much needed. Can you talk a little bit about the timing to bring them online?
Hello, Commissioners. Mike Rome from Bridgeport Development. So it's going to take about a year for us to close on the project, and construction usually lasts about 19 months or so. So we're probably early 2027.
Thank you.
Do commissioners have any other questions? With that, I would like to recognize that Commissioner Brooks has joined us and is present for today's Plan Commission. And with that, do I have a motion on a proposed amendment to the business plan development number 665 submitted by LDI Partners LLC for the properties generally located at 3926, 3948 North Damon Avenue and 3959 North Lincoln Avenue, finding that it meets the requirements for approval. Do I have a motion? So moved by Commissioner Escarino, seconded by Commissioner Boatright. With that, would like to move to roll call vote on this matter. Commissioner Boatright. Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Brumfield is a yes. Commissioner Carney. Commissioner Dowell. Commissioner Escarino. Commissioner Murphy. Commissioner Pinheiro. Commissioner Reyes. And I believe that is it. With that, the motion passes. Congratulations. The next item today is listed as D2, an information presentation of the ground floor commercial design guidelines. The guidelines build off the previous adopted neighborhood design guidelines and the ground floor residential on commercial corridor design guidelines. The document will provide specific recommendations and best practice examples for future design review of renovation and new construction ground floor commercial projects proposals along Chicago's commercial corridors, and will create a set of user-friendly and best practice examples for non-design professionals, including small business owners and small property owners. These design guidelines are meant to be a resource and clarify best practices. They are not taking policy positions, changing ordinances, or imposing additional requirements or processes. Frank Krizek will provide the content overview and present the proposed plan. Frank.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Frank Krizak. I'm with the Department of Planning and Development, and today I'll be providing an informational presentation on our ground floor commercial design guidelines. So as was mentioned, this is the third in our package of design guidelines. The first adopted in March 2022 were the neighborhood design guidelines, which are more general for neighborhoods around the city. And then the second were the ground floor residential on commercial corridor guidelines, which were adopted earlier this year. And those are specifically for residential units along commercial corridors. For this project, we selected Skidmore, Owings and Merrill as our consultant through a tour process, and they were selected in October 2023. This project has also been a collaboration with various city departments, BACP, zoning, Department of Buildings, CDOT, our Planning Bureau, as well as Historic Preservation. And this presentation is an overview of the design guidelines document, so it is not exhaustive. The purpose of these design guidelines. So the project duration has been October 2023 to November of this year. These will create a set of user-friendly design guidelines and best practice examples specifically for non-design professionals. We are providing clear guidelines for future review of new developments as well as renovations. And then on this slide, there are a couple of examples of spreads from the document. So as I mentioned, these guidelines are for renovations and new construction, and we are intending for this to be a toolkit, a resource, and design inspiration. This document is not clarifying best practice, or it is clarifying best practices. It's not taking policy positions, changing ordinances, or imposing any additional requirements or processes. This document is not intended to be an enforcement document in any way. It's to maximize opportunities for commercial storefronts. So this slide shows the areas of the city that SOM conducted their research. And then importantly for us, throughout these guidelines, we've been intentional in representing a myriad of neighborhoods throughout the city. So an example of some of those are Back of the Yards, Chinatown, Pilsen, Logan Square, Bronzeville, Avalon Park, Clearing, Hyde Park, Inglewood, and many, many others. So it was very important for us to represent the entire city for this project. So the big intention for us for this project is to really look at what common examples of ground floor commercial design challenges are throughout the city. So often we'll see temporary signage used as a long-term solution, windows being covered, excessive lighting, views into stores being obscured with excessive signage, mismatched materials, low quality materials as well, and then actually reducing the size of windows and existing masonry openings. So our mission is to provide solutions to all those challenges. So here's some examples on this slide of good design, in comparison to those challenges you saw on the last slide. So these examples show visibility into the store with cohesive materials and elements, minimal signage, accessible and inviting storefront entries, decorative lighting for signage and security, as well as just clear, simple, and aesthetically pleasing signage. So on to the guidelines themselves. This document is broken up into 3 main sections. So we have site design, which addresses landscaping, access, and entries. Facade design, which addresses proportions and contexts, details and styles, materials, doors, windows, signage, and exterior lighting. And then we have 6 case studies at the end of the document to show tangible examples for folks to use. So for the first objectives, and I should mention at the beginning that increasing visibility, providing guidance on good materials, helping brand businesses appropriately, and helping create a welcoming atmosphere are applicable to every single objective to follow. But so for design, site design, landscaping and access and entries are entailed in that. So promoting pedestrian-friendly and welcoming design, enhancing amenities within property boundaries, and encouraging well-maintained landscaping are integral to that. And then for access and entries, main building entries must be clearly visible and accessible to the street. Recessed entries should be well illuminated and visible from the sidewalk, and then service entries should be separated from those main entries, and then those are just some examples of what is covered in those. And then onto our second section, which is facade design guidelines and objectives, which is kind of the meat of the document. Facade proportions and context are addressed. So improvements should complement or be visually consistent with adjacent buildings, considering all sorts of factors like architectural styles, materials, color, and scale. Facade details and styles. So that's really kind of keeping a cohesive element to storefronts within the context of the architecture of the building itself. And then facade materials, where we address preserving or repairing high-quality building materials when possible, especially so many buildings in the city that have unique architectural character. And then also replacing, repairing certain elements for storefronts is important as well. Continuing with facade design guideline objectives, these also entail doors. So we have examples of retaining doors with complementary style to the building facade and also considering the context of surrounding buildings, and really hammering the point home that doors should allow visibility from the sidewalk for pedestrians and customers. And then window design is the next in the objectives. So we talk extensively about materials, styles, restoring window proportions to increase visibility, and doing what nobody should be doing, which we saw in the challenges earlier on, which is blocking views through windows with excessive temporary or permanent coverings. And then also we get into sustainability, bird-friendly window design, and other items such as that. And then also continuing with facade design objectives, signage is a very important part of this document. So we have many examples of signs that are legible, clear, and visible from the street, integrating awnings with the proportions of the facade and, if applicable, the historic period of the building. And then consistency, style, size, and placement of awnings to be complementary to the building itself, and then also, again, the kind of the larger commercial corridor. And then there is exterior lighting, which is to accentuate architectural features, the signage itself, merchandise displays, and then also creating a sense of safety, and for pedestrians and also security for businesses. And then also, I failed to mention in the previous slide for windows and doors, we also addressed security gates and shutters in the document, which, if they are going to be installed, should be on the inside of any windows and doors. And we have examples of design that is aesthetically pleasing as much as possible when you have, security gates or shutters, but that is also addressed. And then finally, we have case study examples that I mentioned. So really what we wanted to do with the case studies is to give users of these guidelines, because again, most of these folks are likely going to be non-design professionals or architects. So we wanted to give them some tangible examples of good design. So these two examples have, channel letter sign, highlighting architectural details with specific materials and colors, awning, window sign, consistent color palette. And then for the dollop example, we have a legible flat panel sign, extended windows that are very large, clear, and open, so everybody can see each other. Entry lighting, a clear corner entry for access from both sides of both streets, and then durable facade materials that complement the overall design. And then for my personal favorite case study in our document, is an example from 2135 West Chicago Avenue. And this one is really wonderful because it shows an actual transformation from a not great commercial storefront to a really, really beautiful one. So you can see the before and after pictures. The owner of this building installed a new fence and landscaping, new door, tuck pointing, added consistent colors and matching materials, because even though this document is specifically focusing on ground floor storefronts, the fact that we can have projects that complement even the floors above those storefronts really contribute to the overall aesthetics. And then also permanent door sign, that deteriorating mansard awning was removed. And then you can see that the windows were made much larger, clearer, and everything is just more consistent and clean. And then, I shouldn't forget also a fantastic, very colorful mural on the side of the building, because we know that, you know, once it's wintertime, we could use all the color we can get. And so that is it. Our project timeline, so right now we're obviously in September for our informational presentation. This will be up for public feedback for the next month. And then hopefully final adoption in November.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Do commissioners have any questions of the staff or the applicant? So we have Commissioner De Niro and followed by Commissioner Escarino.
Thank you, Frank. Very good, very interesting presentation. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
And, you know, like it so much that I want to understand a little bit. These are guidelines.
Yep.
So of course, it's hard to, let's call it enforce maybe. So that's what I'd like to know. To what extent is this something that is enforceable, encourageable? To what extent does that provide the city some teeth, so to speak, to put this in place?
Yeah, so these are, it's not an enforcement document, but we do in the document have a repository in the back of various ordinances and codes and things like that. And then all throughout the document, we have links to, you know, like the pedestrian ordinance code, building codes, public way use permits, all of that stuff is really littered throughout the document. So we wanted to make sure, and there's language in a lot of parts of it, that, you know, while we are recommending best practices and inspiration, you know, for a neon sign, we make it clear that there will be additional permit review, you know, all of that kind of stuff, so that people are well aware that this is kind of one part of the puzzle, but there are codes, there are ordinances and zoning regulations and all of that kind of stuff as well. Yes, and then Nora will add something as well.
I just wanted to add, hello, for the record, my name is Nora Curry. I'm Program Director at the Department of Planning and Development, and I manage the SPIF program, so the Small Business Improvement Fund for DPD. And the guidelines came about as a partnership between the Small Business Development Bureau and the Planning Bureau, because we both need it for our different development needs to advise our users. But particularly for the SPIF program, in addition to what Frank has mentioned, we do have a bit of an enforcement tool in that we have an exterior requirement for our grant. And we can do up to $150,000 grant for commercial. It's not enormous, but when we do that, we do need to give people guidance on what to do. And we were finding, we have a program administrator, and they're working with people as they do their development, and they come in to get our approval, and at that point, we're saying, ooh, temporary sign, ugh. You know, we have comments at that point, and we wanted to give them guidance before that point. We don't want them to have to turn back after 6 months of working with us and redo their proposal. So there is, in a way, that form of enforcement, in that we're giving them funding, and we have that bit of a stick in that on our money. We want to see some of these things happening.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner, I'll add too. So this is a little pat on the back to what the Plan Commission does here is that's the importance of bringing these guidelines here and having them actually be adopted. Because the municipal code contains a very specific thing that's special to PDs that says they must be in compliance with any adopted plans and guidelines by the city. So once they do get adopted, at least for the subset that's planned developments, we would look to those guidelines and say, you're not designing to those standards, you're not meeting these standards, you're not meeting these criteria. And so the things that are coming through planned development that you see later would follow and adhere to those guidelines.
Great, thank you. Thank you. The second part of my question related to, it's all interrelated, is what's the dissemination other than just, of course, websites and so forth? I think, is there any proactive dissemination so that business owners, they know that, these are rules they should be abiding by?
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a very important part of this, is we want to be able to get this in the hands of folks as much as possible. So getting it out to delegate agencies, ward offices, really any way we can get these out to as many people as possible is going to be a critical next step.
Okay.
In addition to the ward offices and local partners, the SSAs and the local chambers within those communities, because oftentimes that's the first touch to our small businesses that are often looking for guidelines, looking for direction, looking for some support. You mentioned SPIF, but there's also SSA facade enhancement programs. And so there's different resources and tools that can be made available to make just beautifying our corridors a lot easier and far more tangible from a resources standpoint.
Just one final point about the 2135 West Chicago project that you showed up there. Was that, how did that come about? That was a great transformation. Is that something that they received grants and then they went ahead and remodeled it, or they just had a new owner and repurposed it? If you know, if it's fine, I'm just curious.
I believe, yes, they did get a grant, but we could follow up on that.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, because NOF, CDG, we have all these great grants. So yeah, we hope to get this in front of people for all the economic development initiatives we have.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Escarino, followed by Commissioner Dowell.
Yes, this is really refreshing. It's really wonderful to provide specifically to small businesses that don't have the resources and often feel that they have to go to, architects and or designers and actually spend a little bit of money that they have invested there versus actually putting it right back into their business. So kudos, Commissioner, to you and your team on this. I do have questions more, not about the compliance. We understand that this is a guidance document.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the important questions for me is about neighborhoods that have a lot of, that need this the most, where we see maybe many more of the the businesses and or storefronts that need the transformation are usually in low income areas or areas that the commercial areas are really needing a boost. I think one of the challenges with many of those businesses, just in my previous life, is that if a business owner and or a building owner was looking to do exactly what that Chicago Avenue address, the transformation like that, is the existing regulations and requirements by so many other departments, right? BACP, for example. My question is around how are you using this guidance to work with other agencies to potentially eliminate some of the hurdles and or requirements of addressing, because we would all like to see this, but I think many of this still at a cost. And I just want to say this is great, but wondering, is there, other than citing, is there other ongoing conversations around how do we as a city assist these other businesses and or owners of these buildings to make sure that they can actually reach, beautification of this nature? There's still a lot of, requirements, and understanding that it takes a process, but just wondering, is that door open? Are there examples? Is there something going forward to really specifically focus on those areas?
Yeah, I can answer and the team can certainly chime in. I think it's about making an effort to do outreach, to just educate the businesses that resources are available. Our goal is to really, improve all of our corridors. And not so that they all look the same, but they all are special, right? They all feel very, whether it's South Side or whether it's West Side or whether it's neighborhood specific, we don't want uniform corridors, but we want the corridors and the businesses to reflect the goods and services that are being offered in a very tasteful way. And so in order to know, A, that resources are available and that these guidelines are available, it requires us to be more out, right? And so that's the comment that I mentioned earlier, engagement with the SSAs, which is under our department, engagement with the local chambers to say, hey, we've got resources. And we're not just saying, hey, here are the guidelines, here's some funding that can help to make it easier. So we're talking about removing barriers and providing the education to say, hey, it doesn't have to look like this. The other thing that I wanna mention is we talk about our departments and really working together. Some of this is enforcement. And so you saw some kind of what not to do's on some earlier slides, specifically around window covering. There's actually an ordinance that exists already. And so some of it has to be enforced so that we can ensure that our storefronts look the way that we would like to see and the way, frankly, the businesses probably want to see. And some of it is changing the behavior. Another big piece that goes to my earlier statement is providing the resources for the more, costly changes that need to be made to beautify our corridors in a very consistent way that's sustainable. We can't just hope that folks can come up with the resources. We have to be able to provide some of the resources as well to ensure that we're taking a corridor by corridor approach to addressing these challenges equitably.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think I understand that DPD, this is your area. I'm actually thinking about using this as a conversation with other departments like the enforcement departments, right? Because I think often, at least in my experiences in the past, is that the same buildings that are not in compliance today may be continuing to get enforcement, and so they're kind of already, trying to get out of these issues. So just opening up the conversation with other departments outside of yours for the compliance aspect and how do we actually really begin to maybe address some of those hurdles so that we can, because you can give, the resource, but then if now they're spending that resource to just kind of try to get into good compliance, then we want the resources that your department provides to actually go into the beautification. So just again, just encouraging the conversation with other agencies, really looking at some of those ordinances that maybe work against trying to get out of and into compliance would be just something to think about. But thank you. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dowell.
Thank you. I appreciated that exchange because Commissioner Scarino, you brought up some of the concerns that I have, and Commissioner Boatright, you were responsive to those concerns. So I won't add my 2 cents, but those are exactly the points that I wanted to raise. I would, however, suggest that between now and the final document, you might go back to Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill and ask them to look at some less vibrant commercial corridors. I didn't see anything 35th Street, 47th Street, 53rd Street, 75th Street, 79th Street, 87th Street, Madison. We need to look at that because this is very upscale and it assumes a start at a certain level, but a lot of these businesses are starting below that level. And so when you also talk about the security gates, I'd love to see some examples of that because that's what, I see in my community at 5:30 when the business closed or 9 o'clock, you go down 47th Street between Prairie and Indiana, everybody has those ugly security screens.
Yeah, and the shutters.
The shutters. And what are the options for that? One business put a mural on it, that was nice. But there may be other things. And so I would ask Skidmore to get out of the ivory tower a little bit.
This has been an ongoing discussion with them.
And,
Yeah.
and get into communities where this is really going to make a difference, right? That's one suggestion. I think the second suggestion is the SPIF program. if there's a way to, I don't know if this was part of your Cut the Tape initiative, if you looked at ways to not make it so onerous for businesses to access that money and maybe raise the amount. 150,000 doesn't go very far these days, given the increases in construction materials and supply chain issues. So perhaps look at a way to raise the minimum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one comment, kind of building on some things that were just said with the exchange. You know, the idea of outreach campaign, whether it's through the Alderman office, whether it's through the SSAs. I think a lot of businesses, particularly on the south and west side, they just don't know what they don't know in terms of resources. So, I think, as we were just kind of discussing, Commissioner Boatright, whatever that shapes up, to kind of bring these resources, or at least make these resources known and available, or more available through some type of campaign, I think will go a very long way. So, yes, Commissioner Reyes.
We definitely don't want to have this sit on the shelf, to use that planning cliche.
I just want to add that to what has been said, that this is a very good report, but I will also insist again on the point of going also to visit some of the other important smaller commercials street. And I know I'm from Pilsen, and I know that you included Pilsen 18th Street between Ashland and Wood, but Cermak, Blue Island, there are other areas that are very, very important. I didn't see the pictures there, but I'm assuming you inventory those areas. And I think that the issue, unfortunately, we have to change the perception that we're coming down as an enforcement, right? And I think that we need to be more clear in terms of the funding available, like Commissioner Dowell already mentioned the funding available from the TIF for the businesses in the case that you have a TIF. But in 18th Street, between the areas, the streets that you mentioned, there's no such a TIF. So I think it's important that we try to bring the information with the financial resources at the same time, because otherwise I can hear clearly what some of the small businesses from Pilsen are going to say. The inspectors are going to come and I'm going to be in court, right? So that is very critical, to be able to introduce these changes, making sure that the communities that you want to target or that they can benefit from also have the financial resources available. In Pilsen right now, there's no such a resource, okay? And I think it's important also the education to the aldermen and to the aldermen's offices, because most of the time, business owners, they go to the alderman's office for basic information, right? And so I don't know if you already have been doing meetings with the aldermen, because they also need to understand and be intentional about meeting with all the Chamber of Commerce, right? With all the organizations that are in the community that can also help you to spread the word about what is being asked and at the same time, what is being given. Kind of both things at the same time, because otherwise, good intentions, this is only going to be just good intentions.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Boatright.
Just to respond, just to the outreach part, I think you're absolutely right. Outreach is absolutely critical. And I just want to note that in addition to the small business team, our planners do outreach every single month with the aldermen on new initiatives, new funding rounds, new resources that they may not be aware of, because the team is doing a phenomenal job of addressing some of the challenges. And so just kudos to the team that presented just now and their team on this thoughtful work. But it has to go beyond, to your earlier point, just this presentation at Plan Commission. And for that reason, collaboratively, they're working with our planners to get these resources out to the aldermen's offices and all of the other partners in key neighborhoods that are working with those small businesses. And so I agree wholeheartedly with your points. And I want you all to know that's something that we pride ourselves on, right? Authentic engagement and making sure that we're being responsive to real-time concerns in communities, understanding that they will all look different, but we want to provide equitable solutions throughout our city to address some similar challenges.
Commissioner Brooks.
And you may have already said this, but a couple questions I have. One is, this design guideline, will it replace the previously adopted design guidelines? So it's in addition to, and so when a small business owner, is meeting with the city, are they having to then sift through a number of different design guidelines? Or is there a sort of, can you kind of talk about what that process looks like?
Sure. So this plan commission adopted about a year ago neighborhood design guidelines. And then there were to be two subsets that would follow those overall design guidelines. One we saw just a couple of months back, which was ground floor residential uses that appeared in commercial corridors. So that subset was adopted. This is the second subset. So it's meant to, it wouldn't necessarily replace, it would be to supplement, and it would be to get illustrative answers out to the people who need them the most, the lay people, small business owners who don't have a large fund to hire an architect or a builder out. This gives them some resources and shows them best practices, shows them examples that, are good and achieve this, that they could then use and not have to go get those expensive resources that they can't afford.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And then Commissioner Boatright, you had mentioned about doing outreach. Maybe if you all could just explain, what does that outreach look like sort of between the October and November period?
Yeah, so we are still working through that, but we are looking at getting this out for feedback to all of our delegate agencies, ward offices, pretty much disseminating it to as many key stakeholders that we can, so that we can then get feedback over the next month, deliberate, make any changes. But yeah, we are going to be extremely intentional about getting these out to, as many people as we can, so we can get feedback.
Okay, and I would maybe suggest meeting with some of the small business advocacy groups and networks as well, and getting, getting this in front of them also. And then my last comment, I don't know which slide it was, but it was sort of two slides back to back that spoke to signage, and then it felt like, as I was looking at it, certainly, that what was good was the sort of more minimal, tidy, clean, and neat signage. And then the page before that had a lot of vibrant signage, and that had a lot of sort of areas of improvement. I would just sort of think about how we phrase and frame that messaging, because in some neighborhoods and commercial corridors, where there is, and it wasn't this slide, it wasn't this, it's back a little bit further, but in some communities and corridors, the vibrant signage that may not necessarily be as tidy and clean and neat is sort of part of the culture, part of the community, and part of the place in the community, right? And sort of, it creates that place. So I would just sort of think about, how we sort of frame that messaging between what looks good and what doesn't look good when we present to community.
Absolutely, and yeah, thank you for that. And Commissioner Boatright, you kind of mentioned too, we're trying to be extremely sensitive and intentional about uniqueness and character and cultural sensitivity, because that's, part of what makes Chicago so great. It's not monotone and everything's not the same. So yeah, we want to celebrate that, and definitely, yeah.
But thank you again for this overall presentation. Great job.
Are any aldermen here to make a statement on this item? Do the commissioners have any additional questions for staff, the applicant, or the alderman? And again, this item was informational in nature, and no motion or action is necessary at this time. We will move forward to the next item.
Thank you so much.
Good job. Next item on today's agenda is listed as D3, an informational presentation of the Cicero Avenue Corridor Study. The study was a collaborative effort of the Department of Planning and Development and the Department of Transportation to investigate potential transportation and land use policy improvements to support investment, safety, and revitalization along Cicero Avenue between I-55 and Marquette Road, and which included a year-long community engagement process between the summer of 2021 and the summer of 2022. The study will be made available for 30 days to allow for community feedback prior to its adoption. It's located in the 13th, 14th, 22nd, and 23rd wards. Nolan Zaroff will provide context overview and present the proposed plan. Nolan.
Great. Good morning, Chair, members of the Commission. Again, for the record, my name is Nolan Zaroff with the Department of Planning and Development. I'm joined this morning by Lubka Benak and Vanessa Irizarry from the Department of Transportation. The item before you this morning is an informational presentation of the Cicero Avenue Corridor Study. This study was a collaborative effort of the Department of Planning and Development and the Department of Transportation to investigate potential transportation and land use policy improvements along Cicero Avenue that could support investment, safety, and revitalization. This study will be made available online for 30 days to allow for community feedback prior to adoption. The Cicero Avenue Corridor Study studied a 3.2-mile segment of South Cicero Avenue between Interstate 55 and Marquette Road. The study was completed in coordination with the 13th, 14th, 22nd, and 23rd wards and covered portions of the Clearing, Garfield Ridge, West Elsden, and West Lawn community areas. The study was a collaboration between Planning and Development and Transportation and included a community engagement process through 2021 and 2022. The following presentation provides a broad overview of the subject areas and types of content that are contained within the report. The full draft report will be available online after today's meeting. It is also important to note that this study is conceptual and aspirational. The entire corridor falls under the jurisdiction of the Illinois Department of Transportation and also falls within the Midway Airport Runway Protection Zone, both of which impose constraints to what can be done with the roadway and what can be developed along its edges. Here you can see the general study area with Cicero Avenue corridor itself outlined in yellow. I will note that this map shows old ward boundaries, but the same 4 wards cover the corridor in the latest remap. The area has an overall population of about 112,000 people, 26% of which are white, 2.3% African American, and nearly 70% are Hispanic or Latino. The area is generally younger, and household incomes range from about $64,000 to $90,000. The purpose of the Cicero Avenue Corridor Study was to conduct a thorough analysis of roadway conditions and private development along the corridor in order to develop alternatives for corridor redevelopment. The study includes both a transportation and infrastructure section and a land use section, and outlines a series of goals that aim to address the needs of all users of the corridor and position Cicero Avenue for future investment. The study included a community engagement process, market analysis, evaluation of existing public realm conditions, and recommendations for improvements, land use and design guidelines, and a robust implementation section and resource guide for future improvements. In terms of public engagement, the study included more than 30 touch points with community members, local elected officials, relevant city and state agencies, and other key stakeholders. Materials were also provided in English and Spanish. Here you can see an overview of some of the touch points throughout the study. Based on our analysis of what we heard, the existing conditions are summarized on this slide. The main takeaway, which is no surprise, is that Cicero Avenue is a car-centric corridor with safety and accessibility issues for all roadway users. This includes a high number of automobile crashes at major intersections, speeding, and a lack of pedestrian safety with little buffer between pedestrians and cars, poor sidewalk conditions, and long road crossings. Land use follows a similar auto-oriented pattern with smaller scale development set back behind surface parking lots and a number of vacant and underutilized properties that detract from the overall health of the corridor. Through the analysis, we found that Cicero Avenue can be divided into 4 distinct character zones. Each zone varies in character, such as land use, building pattern, and roadway characteristics. The northern and southern gateways have larger development patterns. Building frontages are set back further from the road, and there are planted medians and wider outer vehicle lanes in the southern portion. The community commercial zone between 46th Street and 53rd Street has a finer grain mix of buildings and business types. The building frontages are closer to the road, and there are planted medians throughout. The Midway Airport Zone is mostly defined by transportation infrastructure and airport uses. There's a large landscaped parkway on the west side of Cicero. The building frontages are set back from the road, and there's a mixture of painted and planted medians, large landscaped parkways, and wider outer vehicle lanes. These character zones help to inform and define infrastructure and land use recommendations for the corridor. The study examined existing street cross-sections along the corridor and presents concept alternatives for increased pedestrian and vehicular safety. Currently, the corridor has a wide 16-foot planted median to the north and a 16-foot painted median to the south. The mid portion from 53rd to 63rd has a 13-foot painted median. In the middle and south portions of the corridor, there is a wider outer travel lane. The traffic analysis showed that eliminating travel lanes was not feasible due to the high traffic volumes. However, by narrowing the 16 and 13-foot center medians and right-sizing the wider travel lanes, additional space could be allocated to the pedestrian zone, addressing many of the concerns heard during public engagement. Alternatives for improvements include either a reduction to the size of the landscape median or replacement of the landscape median by a 6-foot concrete median so that the extra width can be allocated to the pedestrian zone. Both alternatives would increase the number of street trees significantly on a corridor that has very few trees due to the narrow sidewalks. A placemaking toolbox was also included to recommend improvements that would support walkability, safety, connectivity, greening, and community character. Such improvements include new lighting, street furniture, curb extensions, landscaping, enhanced crosswalks, gateways, and other bike and pedestrian safety elements. 3 corridor character themes were also developed based on public feedback. Theme 1 draws on the airport located at the heart of the neighborhood and corridor. Although Midway is an international airport in a large city, the airport in the neighborhood was a term brought up during community engagement. Theme 2 is inspired by the City of Chicago design standards, iconic landmarks, natural features, the Chicago flag, and the history of the city. With proximity to an international airport, Cicero Avenue provides the opportunity to not just highlight the character of the immediate neighborhood, but also the character of the city as a whole. Theme 3 draws on colorful images evoking a sense of neighborhood that has been developed for other communities in Chicago. Rather than representing one cultural identity in the branding, neighborhood images can represent the connection and diversity of people and places in surrounding neighborhoods. The study also catalogs all vacant lots, buildings, and underutilized sites along the corridor and articulates a series of conceptual development scenarios that illustrate best practices for land use, site planning, and public realm activation. These best practices are illustrated across a series of 7 site development scenarios that provide ideas for how new development can best engage with the street, improve curb appeal, and increase pedestrian safety along the corridor. This study also provides a set of design guidelines that cover areas such as public space, programming, site design, massing, facade, and sustainability. Finally, the study includes an implementation section that outlines cost estimates and recommended phasing for physical realm improvements, funding opportunities, and a resource guide for local investors, businesses, and community organizations to improve their corridor. The Cicero Avenue Corridor Study is available for review and public comment at chicago.gov/Cicero Avenue Study. It will be posted for the next 30 days, and city staff will consider any comments before bringing the final report to Plan Commission in November for formal adoption. At this time, we would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
My apologies. We are paying attention here, so we're actually commenting on this. Do the commissioners have any questions of the staff or the applicant? Not, I do understand. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, don't apologize, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, just a couple of quick questions. In terms of just a timeline of, I mean, this is wonderful. I know this entire area, and I think looking at just some of the greenery and ways that you are going to attempt to mimic other communities, especially there's just so much concrete along the majority of this area. So what is the timing on that? What is the sort of just, start and end point? Is this just now a kind of a vision and still community engagement, or what is the timeline of the different steps, I guess? And I know you covered it, but more the reality behind that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. In terms of planning and development work, I think we can use this now, once it's adopted, as a guide for new development along the corridor. I know Leclerc Courts, for example, that development is already, they were part of the participation or the community engagement process for this, and they're already incorporating some of the findings from this study into their redevelopment of the Leclerc Courts site. So I think for DPD, we can use a lot of this now. I will defer to CDOT to talk about the timing on some of the public realm improvements.
Hi, Lupka Benak, Chicago Department of Transportation. So our timeline, next steps would include incorporating the project into our capital program. It is a long-term project. we anticipate needing federal dollars to continue with the project. So to make it federally eligible for construction costs, we would do what's called a Phase 1 preliminary engineering and environmental study. So that would be pretty much the next step in identifying funding for that.
Great. I mean, great kudos in terms of just trying to bring more green. We know that specifically along these parts of the city, there is lack of green space and just shade. I think this is wonderful as a guide for just that entire corridor. So thank you.
I should also mention that the study does have a resource guide at the end that can inform, local business owners, property owners, what different grant opportunities and things are available for them to do improvements on their own properties.
Thank you.
It's also important. Thank you for pointing it out. I understand Alderman Tabarez is here to make a statement on this item.
If I may. Okay, good morning. So I support this project. I'm one of the 4 aldermen that overlap with the Cicero Avenue corridor story. And I have been very engaged with all of the stakeholders and the community on this project. I've attended personally meetings to get community feedback. I've also attended these meetings virtually when we had them virtually during the pandemic. We've been working very hard since my tenure as alderman since 2018 on getting this going. All of the neighborhood organizations, for instance, the Archer Heights Civic Association, the Midway Chamber of Commerce, we support this project because when people drive down Cicero Avenue, whether they're leaving Midway Airport or going to travel out of Midway, the first impression of Cicero Avenue is not a positive one. There is a need for green space. There is a huge need for development, and I know Leclerc Courts is doing a great job. I know my colleague Alderman Rodriguez is doing a great job with that. But more is needed to make this look more attractive. And I really want to commend Nolan with the Department of Planning and Development for really putting this together. He's been working on this as well as Vanessa and CDOT on this project. So we highly support this project. I wrote a letter of support. I really ask for everyone's consideration to support this project. So I'm here today to ask for your support and your consideration. Thank you.
I should also note that Alderman Quinn, Alderman Rodriguez, and Alderwoman Gutierrez also provided letters of support.
Well, thank you for noting that. With that, please.
Just
Alderman
one
Reyes.
question about the process. So now there are 30 days for public comments. So the only opportunity for the public to make an opinion is just going to online? There's no other opportunity for people that are not that savvy or,
So at this point, yeah, so the next 30 days, the report will be available online for people to review, provide comments or questions. This is the end of over a year of community engagement. So we had, I should actually go back to that slide. We had more than total 30 touch points with the community over the course of the study. So like 2 larger community meetings, a community advisory group that included not only kind of departmental and organizational stakeholders, but also community members. We did a number of focus groups and interviews, 2 online surveys. So this study is already informed by over a year of really robust community engagement on the ground.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I missed this part when I walk away, but so I appreciate this because I think this is critical, the most important component. Besides having the automatic support, I think it's just to see how you engage the community so many times. So that's what it matters. Thank you.
Do the commissioners have any other questions for staff? Please.
Not a question, just a comment to Nolan and the team and CDOT, just for collaboration and just being responsive to some of the challenges. And as Nolan just mentioned, just the authentic engagement to really be timely in the responsiveness to concerns that have been raised. So just a thank you for you all's hard work as two departments working together for similar goals and complementary goals.
as well as 4 aldermen as well, which you understand is, yeah, it's a tall task.
Thank you.
With that, if the commissioners do not have any additional questions of the staff, as a reminder, this item was informational in nature and no motion or action is necessary at this time. With that, I think we are,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. With that, we'd like to adjourn this meeting or Plan Commission. This does conclude this month's meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Commissioner Boatright, seconded by Pinero. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright, Commissioner Brooks, Commissioner Brumfield is yes. Commissioner Dowell, Commissioner Escarino, Commissioner Murphy, Commissioner Pinero,
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes.
Yes.
And what I understand may be among the shortest Plan Commission sessions. This meeting is adjourned at the time of 11:36 a.m. Thank you.